Today, I want to talk with you about four essential skills that you need if you want to befriend yourself. I am going to, there we go. I just had to fix my screen. I'm going to be looking at my notes here on my screen. And so I'm going to walk you through these four essential skills. I want you to walk away from this episode really feeling a strong sense of, I need that. I need to understand more. So I want you to know that I have created for you a resource. And in this resource, it walks you through these four skills. I want it to be practical, like you can begin practicing today. So I really tried hard to give you just enough information so that you would understand what this skill is and what it means, why it matters to you. And then I also give you three ways that you can begin practicing starting today. My recommendation is that you choose one starting place. Read through, it's not too much to read. You could probably read through it in 15 minutes. I'm not quite sure how fast you read, but and then I would just trust your gut. Trust whichever one of those really speaks to you the loudest, and just reread that section and choose even one of the ways to start practicing. All right, so I'm going to dive in. So, what I noticed in my own healing, growth, becoming work, after years of work, personal work and practice, I started to notice that these were pillars of my growth. These were the recurring themes or practices that I kept having to go back to, where I started to really just notice that they were the things that were driving my healing and growth. So, 11 years ago, I started bringing these into my work as well with other midlife women and testing it out for myself. And for years, it ran mostly in the background, but it was always there in my mind. I was always applying, testing, iterating, noticing. And I saw that actually, just like in my own healing journey, becoming journey, freedom journey, these were key, like essential principles and practices for other people's positive transformation or change as well. And so then I brought them more clearly, obviously, into the brave and beautiful community these past 7 years. I have talked about these before, but I think that well, honestly, I just think that sometimes I get better. Well, not sometimes. I just through practice, right? I get better at explaining the importance of something or learning how to offer it to you in a way that you can really grab hold of. And I'm hoping that I'm going to do that here for you because honestly, you can use this information like today in this episode, I'm just going to offer you sort of this brief kind of overview, but I really want you to get hold of the resource because you can use that information in your life. You can apply it in any situation for your benefit. Okay, so the four skills that are essential for you to befriend yourself, and these are also the same skills that drive a brave, beautiful, soul honoring life. I call it like the little engine that could. It's the little engine that is just making everything else function. These are, or I think I already said this, these are essential and they're useful in any relationship, any situation where you have to make a decision, any situation where you're struggling or feeling a bit vulnerable or wobbly. Like it really doesn't matter. You can apply this to any life situation to support like healthy, wise, positive movement forward. Okay, so these skills are the skill of self-awareness And that's where you really get to know and trust yourself. Second is the skill of self-compassion. And that's where you learn how to be on your own side always, no matter what. Third is the skill of consistent, imperfect action. And that's where you commit to a practice of a kinder way of being in your body and life. And I'm going to say more about this. I'm going to flesh it out for you. And fourth is the skill of reclaiming or walking in your agency. And this is where you actually get to be your true self in every area of life. So, I want to say a little bit more first about using this cycle, these four skills. They flow in a clockwise motion. They work together. You cannot remove one piece from the equation. Self-awareness plus self-compassion help you practice consistent, imperfect action in a soul honoring way towards what you want or make wise choices. And those three together strengthen or grow your agency. Now, you can start at any point, even agency, even though I said that those other three strengthen or grow your agency, you can start anywhere you want, but you have to know that you have to work on all four. They work together, they build upon and strengthen each other. Now, it's also not complicated. Like once you wrap your brain and heart around it and you begin to practice, it becomes more natural and organic. And you can just use this as a tool, like I said, in any situation. So let's just start there. I don't want to say too much about this, but I want to at least kind of say a little bit more so you kind of understand what I mean. So when I talk about using that cycle or engine as a tool, that is not the same thing as learning how to live and breathe and embody these things. Now, they can work together beautifully, but if you stopped at only using this as a tool, that would be like staying stuck almost in like awareness or just using your cognition or intelligence or like trying to like stay in your brain or your mind and never allow this to seep deeper into your lived experience. And I want you to actually become your true self. Live and breathe, be, embody your values, move through the world in a way where that self-awareness, self-compassion, and imperfect action, that's just part of your day-to-day experience. I also believe that the world needs you. The world needs you to be healthy and whole and know your worth and operate in your gifting and not be so easily rocked by other people's opinions or behavior. So actually, I'm realizing I just want to say one more thing before I move forward. Give me a sec. I couldn't use my printer, so I have to scroll here on my laptop. So life is messy. We've established that. But when you know who you are and you know how to be on your own side, not only will you experience a jump in your freedom and joy, but your relationships, your work or sense of meaning and purpose in the world, your health, your mental, emotional, physical health, and every other area of your life will also feel radically simpler and easier. I'm going to say that a slightly different way. I've said this again, but I just think it bears repeating over and over and over. We need you to be whole. We need you to be filled up and resourced and resilient, to know who you are, to know what matters, and And when you are filled up and healthy and whole, and you can pause between impulse and response, and you can make wise choices. And what happens is you have an impact in your family, in your friendship circle, in your broader support network, and then that trickles out into even further reaches. We all have an impact in this world, like it or not, conscious of it or not. We all have an impact. We actually have like an exponential impact in the sense that I'm talking to you right now, right? Just person to person. But when you grab hold of something and make it your own, when you, let's say, you really begin to practice self-kindness like never before, you learn how to value and love and respect and affirm and trust yourself, that is automatically going to spill over into your relationship with your partner, your friends, your children or grandchildren, your neighbors, your, work colleagues. There's an overflow effect. You don't get to stop that. It happens one way or another. And that's why I feel pretty strongly about supporting women to do their own healing and growth work, because you have a chance to touch so many other lives. And because this is one of the sticky points for some people, especially when you arrive in midlife feeling weary and depleted, and you've spent decades, people pleasing and taking care of others, and you're like, now it's about me. I have to fill myself up. And that's true, you do. But once you fill up and restore, you you you'll then have, well, even, okay, I was going to say you'll then have more capacity to notice how you want to engage, or notice the ways that just by being you are making a difference in the world, and that is true. And also, some of you do know that it's important to you to help build a world you want to live in, or build a world that you want to pass down to the people that are coming after you. Anyway, long story short, I care about you. I care about you because you matter. But I also know, and I can't remove this truth from my brain, that when you are restored, when you love yourself, that you are going to actually help others do the same. You're going to make the world better. You're going to make it kinder and safer by being you, by being wise, healthy you. Okay, but even if all you have capacity for right now is thinking like, I'm just barely keeping it together, I can't think about impact, I just need to like take care of me, then know this. These skills are essential to help you love yourself, fill yourself up, take good care of your own wants and needs, and give yourself permission to stop putting yourself last. All right. So let's talk about this a little bit more as a tool. And so that's where, if you want to look at my hope map graphic, it's the yellow round graphic. It says the hope map on it. I share it on my website in different ways, and in lots of different resources. So if you sign up for this resource, I will include it so you see what I'm talking about. So in the middle of the hope map, you'll see the little cycle of these 4 essential skills. The reason they're in the center is that they are at the heart of all of our growth and becoming. If you are at the center of your life, then that relationship with yourself is actually what determines everything else in your life, the full experience of your life. So this is the little engine that, or protection almost, that surrounds you, that helps you stay connected to yourself, and also helps you continually take ownership of who and how you're being. And that includes like telling the truth about what is or isn't working for you. What do you want? What do you need for wholeness and joy, etc. So if you were to use that as a tool, any situation you're in, you would just start, I would start in that case at self-awareness. And that's where really you bring curiosity, not judgment, to play. So, of course, this is broad because the precise way in which we would use this as a tool would vary depending on the context. But in this place of self-awareness, we're really noticing what is happening. That could be looking for objective facts or data, but it might also be looking at our internal experience, like noticing what's happening in our bodies, noticing the thoughts we're thinking, noticing what emotions are present for us. So we could get curious and question, say, oh, I wonder what that's about. Or we might ask ourselves, what do you need right now to feel safe? Or why did that activate me so much in that moment? Like we're just asking questions, bringing curiosity. We try to do this from a place of, well, again, that strong curiosity, but another way we can think about that is using a lot of experimentation, like how would I say this? Like gathering data or gathering information. So another way that we might use this is if you're feeling like, say, really overwhelmed or emotionally charged, or all you can see and think is like negative, then you could use that self-awareness, for example, to witness and say, okay, I'm really hurting right now. I'm feeling really shaky right now, or my inner critic is being really mean right now. But you could say something like, okay, what else is true? Or what did I do well? Or what is going well? And then like pull out, pen and paper and start writing down a list. Sometimes the way I use this is if fear is really loud, or it's hard for me to believe in a new possibility, or the believe in my ability to create or receive something that I desire. I might ask myself, okay, Krista, what do you know to be true? And then again, pen to paper, because what that does is help me access more truth or wisdom beyond what the fear story is. Okay, in that place of self-awareness, again, we're thinking about what is my behavior? What thoughts am I thinking? What emotions am I noticing? What's happening in the environment? What are the conditions supporting or not supporting me? Right? So again, information gathering, objective data gathering, as well as witnessing our experience. Now, self-awareness requires self-compassion. And the reason is that self-awareness can bring to light things that we don't like about ourselves, or things that we do not want to be true in our lives. It can reveal things that we've spent decades trying to outrun or suppress. So, in order to feel safe and stable in that awareness, growing awareness, we require self-compassion to create that safety. So, in that place of self-compassion, that's where after thinking, okay, what's happening right now, what's going on, we need to bring self-kindness to the table. So we don't allow mean self-talk to take over. If we notice the inner critic, we say, hey, we don't talk to ourselves that way. If we're in a situation involving another person, we could say the same thing. I'm not willing to sit here and receive bullying behavior. I'm going to remove myself until we can have a respectful conversation, for example. So that self-compassion brings tenderness, affirmation, loving kindness, but it also is protective. So it can protect you from others and from harmful behaviors of your own. It can protect you from mean, critical, judgy self-talk as well. We have to have that element of self-compassion. So if I was in a situation, and let's say something didn't go well and I was feeling pretty hard on myself, I might have tried my best to write out, okay, what happened? What were the factors that led to this result if I'm able to identify them right now? What else might be true? What did I do well? And then I would use I would practice kind self-talk. I would make my brain see what went well, not just what didn't go well. I would think of what I need right now to take care of myself because if we're really emotional or really in our fear brain or really hard on ourselves, we might need a break to just tend to ourselves before we continue this cycle if we have enough space, if it's not an emergency or something. Okay, so we bring in the self-kindness, the kind self-talk, the loving care. We might at that point make a bid for connection, ask for a hug, text a friend, make an appointment with our coach or therapist. All of those things are forms of self-kindness. Another element here of self-kindness is common humanity, and that just means that we're all messy and in progress. Sometimes when we're struggling, we think we're the only one. We think everybody else has figured stuff out. And of course, that isn't true. We're all messy. We're all kind of bumbling our way through this world, doing our messy best with the tools we have at our disposal. So it's also reminding ourselves that we all have strengths and struggles. And also, something that's really powerful for me in this place of self-awareness and self-compassion is reminding myself that, and I see this in my clients all the time, that they see the messiness, but what I need to help them see or mirror back to them is their bravery. Because people who are willing to risk, willing to open their hearts, willing to try things, willing to you know, um, be in this messy adventure, open-hearted. They're brave. They're often way more brave than they give themselves credit for. So that's another thing that self-compassion brings to the table for me over and over again. Once we're in a place where we're resourced, rested, regulated enough through self-awareness and self-compassion, we have enough awareness of kind of what it is that we want or need, for example, then we move into that imperfect action phase of the cycle. Now, practicing consistent imperfect action has some different components, but here I just want to point out that what this practice does is first, it helps us remember that we're all simply practicing. We don't wait for the perfect solution, or we don't believe the story that there really is a perfect answer or solution most of the time. There's only the one that seems the wisest in the moment with the tools and resources we have available to us. And that because imperfect action reminds us that we don't have to see the whole path ahead of us yet. All we have to do is take that one next step into the light that we do have, because when we do that, then we'll receive the wisdom we need for the next step. So that's scary and vulnerable. And it's hard for your brain to trust this. That's why we need that strong self-trust as well that comes through that practice of self-awareness, self-compassion, where we learn how to, just as a reminder, we get to know and trust ourselves. We learn to be on our own side always, no matter what. Okay, we're forging this deep self-trust. We're learning how to really connect with our intuition and our inner wisdom. And so you can imagine that if we're just operating blindly, then yeah, our next step is often going to be a little wild. Maybe, you know, but when we're deeply rooted in self-awareness and self-compassion, and we have practiced listening to our inner voice, it becomes easier and easier to trust and take that next step. But the thing here, we have to remember that this is really about commitment to practice, to be in messy practice, to be a human in progress, a life in progress, to loosen our grip on believing that we have to know the perfect way, that there is one perfect outcome. We can't see beyond our lived experience. We can't even imagine what is possible for us if we've never witnessed it before. So there is this element of bravery and courage and willingness to say yes to stepping into that little bit of light we have, and then trusting that we'll have the capacity, we'll have the wisdom, we'll have the strength we need for tomorrow or the next leg of the journey. So there is this commitment to messy practice, and that is humbling. It very much bumps up against perfectionist tendencies, fearful tendencies. So, this is also where we practice noticing, using self awareness and self compassion to notice the stories that are coming up, notice the emotions, and it helps us show up, witness them, and be kind to ourselves in that experience, but still show up through fear. We don't live under the covers. We learn how to build this muscle of imperfect action that keeps us moving towards the life we want, who we want to be in the world, how we want to be in our bodies and lives. All right, so there's so much more we could say, but again, come get the resource. Now, as we move through these three elements of this cycle, what's going to happen now is we come into this place of growing agency. So this is where things get a lot more fun because we start to feel proud of ourselves. We start to believe in ourselves even more. We witness our progress. Instead of focusing so much on lack, we see, holy, look at that. Look at where I've come from. Look at how I've grown. Look at how that was scary, but I did it anyway. Look how I'm learning how to take care of myself, even when I feel anxiety. So we start to feel, more empowered in our bodies and lives. And this is also where we start to let ourselves shine more, enjoy our lives, not always like live so anxious and like deferring happiness. We start to be more fully present in our lives. And over time and with practice, we also start to strip away anything that isn't true self so we can really be our true selves in every situation, every area of life. Okay, but I'm getting too far ahead. If we were just using this in a particular situation to use this as a tool, what you would notice is, okay, I did a good job. That went well. That's also, and you could ask yourself, you could evaluate here. So, what did I learn from this situation about myself or about life? What could I do differently next time? What went well, what didn't, why? So we're not easily shaken. We can lead more from joy than ego. So this is where we really grow also in this ability to just be more, I don't know, it's a form of maturity, really, of wholeness. Like when you can, it's not about receiving criticism, but it's about being able to more objectively look at the truth of a situation or of ourself or of our life. So where we can really hold paradox more easily, and that can include like that we are all strength and struggle. We all have these messy bits that are, and then we all have these beautiful, wonderful like gift places of gifting and strength. And it all just works together. Like there's no shame in being fully human. So, okay. What I really encourage you to do is get hold of the resource and then just test it out for yourself. I know I'm trying to keep this like simple enough that it's actionable, but we go deeper into this and we live and breathe it inside the Brave and Beautiful community. But even if you never joined the Brave and Beautiful community, again, you can really learn a tremendous amount from this resource itself. Okay, I want to step back now and I want to go through this again, but I want to do it more on that like becoming your true self across the seasons of your life viewpoint. Again, so we could use that cycle multiple times a day. We could use it in our in life visioning or in like goal setting where we're identifying, well, what is it that I want to achieve or create or receive. Okay, believing in myself, bringing in the self-compassion part of it, figuring out next steps, and then celebrating our progress. Like we use this cycle over and over and over again as a tool. But now I really want to come back to what I believe is even more powerful and transformational. And I really want you to have this. I want you to have access to this. So I'm going to tell you again how, why these skills are essential for you befriending yourself and being your true self in the world, or handcrafting a life that feels like home, a joyful life, a values aligned life. The skill of self awareness is about you getting to know yourself and trusting yourself. So, if we were to step back, so if you were to join the Brave and Beautiful community, for example, some people spend years because this is deep work. We don't just, you're not going to learn all the things there are to know in a day, in 3 months, or even in 1 year. We keep growing and becoming. But this phase of getting to know and trust yourself is, of course, critical, and it requires that you get to know yourself. You get to know your true self. But what I have noticed in my work is that there are different phases that we have to go through in getting to know ourselves. And so I've just briefly touched on this a couple times, I think, but the way that I see this and I'm exploring this now is that we go from what I'm calling old self. So that's kind of when we're unconscious. We're not very self-aware. We're kind of just using the information we've been handed, the roles we've been handed, the beliefs we've been handed, and we're still kind of in that place of old self. And it can include operating in personality, but we don't have awareness of that yet. Then we'll move at some point into this phase that I'm calling new self. And new self is where we start to notice. So for me, that's really started in my 30s, where I became aware of perfectionism operating in my life and perfectionism as a self-defense or protective mechanism. I started learning about high sensitivity. I started tracking my menstrual cycle and understanding why I thought my marriage was going to end once a month, like every time, the sky was falling once a month. And I really started to become more awake to how how I moved through the world and different patterns at play in my life. And I really also started to sort of be confronted with my shadow side, the parts of me that I did not like very much. So we start to wake up and we start to have more agency, more power of choice in this phase of life. But then the next phase is true self. And most of the time, when a midlife woman comes to my work, she's in the new self phase. She has enough self-awareness. She's interested in getting to know herself. She's been doing healing work or growth work of some kind. In some cases, she's just newly retired and realizes, like, I don't actually know who I am anymore beyond like the roles I've played. So, but one way or another, there's this awakening and a desire or a longing for more understanding of like, who am I really? And do I get to have my own wants and needs? And, sort of this awakening. So that would be the new self phase. And then what I want though is to help women get over into that true self phase, to get to know their true selves. True self lives, has always been present and lives underneath the roles you play, underneath personality, underneath wounding, underneath your conditioning. And so, what we need to do is meet, truth tell about all these different elements of how we learn to get our needs met or feel safe in the world and all of that. And then we start to kind of dissolve or shake off or peel away or declutter or befriend so that we can actually really meet and befriend that true self that has lived there all along. And then with practice, we start to lead our lives more and more from true self. Okay, so get to know and trust yourself involves a lot. Okay, but we always bring self-compassion along for the ride. So we start to get to know ourselves. Self-trust really can only grow deep roots if we learn how to be on our own side, right? Again, self-awareness and self-compassion walk hand in hand. They must. Otherwise, you can just get pulled deeper and deeper into despair and hopelessness and even self-loathing. So that self-compassion comes alongside, and that's where, things really start to go deep. We move from mental understanding, like conceptual understanding of new ideas or personality or how things work in our lives. And we really start to go deeper and start connecting with, oh, this is who I really am, and often it's surprising, delightful, shocking, and there can be tears along the way. And just one little simple example of this would be, even though this is even just a tiny speck of an example, but one that you might understand, is that how so many women are getting diagnosed later in life with ADHD and autism because like my younger daughter who's autistic ADHD, I took her to doctors and stuff. We knew that something was different. I did all this reading. I would take her to these doctors, and nobody knew because nobody was diagnosing girls or women. She didn't look like the little boys that, they were diagnosing with ADHD or autism. She didn't fit that mold, right? So she fell through the cracks. And anyway, so then so many women, once they receive that diagnosis, there's like grief work that has to happen because they've been carrying shame and pain and judgment and feelings of rejection and just so much hurt that has been heaped upon them because they are different in this world and they didn't know why and other people didn't know why. But then, stuff, they were hurt in lots of different ways because of that. And so that they get that glimmer of awareness, and then they need the self-compassion in order to release that shame and the guilt, or not the guilt so much, but the shame and rejection and pain and all of that, and actually come to this place of deep acceptance and then befriending and loving themselves. Okay. So then once we have a growing sense of, oh, this is who I am, and we start to build self-trust, and we start to learn how to really be on our own side in every situation, even if we make a mistake, even if we stumble, then we can begin this practice of a kinder way of being in our body and life. And that is where, okay, those first two, like the skill of self-awareness and the skill of self-compassion, think of those as you're really doing deep inner work. It's even though there is an impact or an external overflow, the work is really largely about going inward, listening inward, quieting all the noise outside of you to do this like inner work. Once that's solid, now you can start to kind of expand outward in, but in a way that really is honoring and respectful of the truth of who you are. So, in this phase, that's where we'll start to really look at your lifestyle, your relationships, your money relationship, your energy ebb and flow, the work you're doing, how you're approaching your work, like more of these kind of outward relational or in physical or lifestyle or environmental things. Because those things matter in order because you'll have learned like all of us, we've all been conditioned, we all develop these patterns of, let's say, over functioning or not resting enough or whatever. We need to now examine those things and start to build new life-giving practices into our lives. But if you try, like what happens sometimes is if people don't have self-awareness, then they'll jump on bandwagons, right? So they'll see, like, even like, let's just say, because I'm a big fan of like simple living and decluttering. So if you were, excited by, some minimalism stuff, you could end up comparing yourself to others and feeling like, oh, you should do it their way. You should have a life that looks like somebody else's on Instagram. So we kind of get pulled into these ways of being in our bodies and lives that are largely about measuring up, keeping up, comparison, etc. You probably did a lot of that in your life. I know I did. But in this phase of life, midlife and beyond, we don't want to do that nonsense anymore, right? So we use the wisdom that we've gleaned about who we really are, what we really want and need. We let go of the rest and we start to build lives that express who we are, that respect and honor the truth of who and how we are. So that would include things like weaving non-negotiable rest into your days and weeks. It would include taking a look at who you're allowing into your inner circle, the relationships that are having the biggest impact on you. It would include, are you doing things that nourish you, fill you up, light you up, in addition to maybe serving or taking care of other people? Anyway, there's a lot that can go into that. And then we move into that phase of agency. Now, again, we're going to be cycling. It's not just all or nothing, like a linear thing, even though we can look at it kind of in this like linear fashion. We move from old self to new self to true self. But even within each of those categories, we're cycling because we grow in our awareness, we take action, we learn more about ourselves, and we continue the cycle, right? So then our sense of agency begins to grow. And agency is really where now we stop masking and hiding and dimming our light. We start to own our beauty and gifting because we recognize that to do so does not diminish your light. There's no like there's enough for all of us. There's enough love and kindness for all of us. We learn how to be proud of ourselves and not think of that's bragging. It's not bragging. It's being proud of ourselves. We need to be proud of ourselves. We also learn how to be proud of others and lift others up. There's just less shame and judgment overall, and more celebration, more room for ease and joy and rest, like rest as in like just being, where we don't have to be creating and producing and doing and proving and pushing and striving and struggling all the time. We learn how to have even periods of time where we get to just be in our lives, be in this day, receive the gifts of every day. But again, there's this inner strength that is growing. And this is really where, as women, I do think there's this fierce energy that I think a beautiful thing that can come going through menopause is this like after you get through the dark winter phase, is this like rise of this fiery, feisty energy and this reclamation of what we care about, what we believe in, using our voice, no longer willing to be pushed around or bullied or even dismissed. And I think there's this beautiful, like, power and strength that women have to offer when they are operating in this place of radical ownership, radical responsibility, really knowing your vision, who you are, and knowing your values and letting your life be an expression of your true self. Okay. But it's not, it is about, I want it to be about that again. Like one, we all have an impact no matter what. I already said that. But two, I want us to care. There are things in this world that are happening. They're not okay. There have always been things that have not been okay, but it's like I don't want us to just fall asleep or stick our head in the sand. I want to support women in getting so strong in who they are and how they can use their gifts in the world in a way that is soul honoring and true to themselves. Like you don't just squish yourself into anybody else's box, right? That's definitely not what we want. But if we do feel more safe and stable and secure in ourselves, then we can use the resources and the gifting available to us to vote for the world we want to live in. So we can play and have fun and fill up and enjoy our lives and thrive forward in every season. And also, we can let our lives spill over and have a positive, healthy impact in the world. Okay, so I want to wrap up. Um, I'm sure I'm going to think of like 82 and a half things that I wish I had remembered to say, but I just really encourage you to come get the free resource, read it through, test it out for yourself, and yeah, and let me know. I would love to hear. Oh yeah, and one more thing, by the way, is that I did, like I said, I tried to keep it simple enough so that you're not overwhelmed and you can really, it's just like, this is the most important information, and you can start to practice these three things right away. But I also then link to, if you're interested, a podcast episode and how you can go one step deeper. So just another resource that you could like for each skill that could take you that one step deeper or further if you want. All right. So I'll put the link in the show notes and we'll see you next time.